Welcome back to Restless. My name is Father Joseph Gill, priest of the Diocese of Bridgeport, and you've joined Angelica, Paul, and Matt as together we young adults restlessly seek the face of Christ in the midst of today's crazy and mixed up world. You know, the greatest commandment is what?
Love God.
Yeah. And the second greatest commandment is?
Love your neighbor for God.
Love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Isn't it love your neighbor for the sake of God?
Yeah, that's ultimately what charity is. But Jesus.
But it's not like explicitly written that way.
No, it's written, love your neighbor as yourself.
Huh.
So the question is, do you love yourself? That's what we're going to talk about today, is loving yourself, which is, there's so many ways in which you can make this like a weird self-help session. And we're going to try to avoid that because I think as Christians, we need to love ourselves. And sometimes we don't know how to do that in a healthy way that doesn't become pride and arrogance. And so what's that look like? So actually, let me just first ask you all, do you love yourself?
Yes, I do love myself.
Good.
I'm not sure.
That's honest.
I think I struggle with it sometimes.
Mm.
I think I do, but I constantly have to tell myself not to be very mean to myself.
Yeah, the thought patterns that we fall into when we talk to ourselves sometimes can get really quite not in accordance with the truth. A lot of times we tell ourselves lies. Oh, I'm trash. I'm this, I'm that. And the truth is, no, you're not. Like, don't buy into that.
Mm-hmm.
So, what does it look like then to love yourself and to love yourself in a healthy way?
Well, I think you have to look at what love is, right? You have to define that, which is willing the good of another, or it's one definition at least. So
yeah, Aquinas said that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're willing the good of yourself. So it's maybe just say like doing things. It's one aspect of it is doing things that would be good for you. It's one way of doing it, and thinking things that are good to think, and so on. And yeah, so that's what I would say is it's a very vague, but it's willing the good.
So so loving yourself is not eating what I ate for dinner tonight.
What did you eat for dinner?
I decided I was going to try to make a green bean casserole. So I put a can of green beans with 3 giant heaping tablespoons of mayonnaise, and just kind of stirred it up and put some cheese on top and microwaved
not
it.
how you make a green.
I know it's not.
It's
but
green beans and cream of mushroom soup and French's.
I didn't have that,
crispy thing.
so I was like, I'm just gonna do this, and like I ate it, and I'm like, this is not great. And at the end, I'm like, now I feel not great.
Yeah, you just ate.
Yeah.
I just ate 3 tablespoons of mayonnaise.
Several different types of fat.
Yeah. Right now I'm feeling it.
Yeah, but you went on a 5-mile run today.
I did, and now I feel kind of I'm limping too because I pulled a muscle on it, but definitely did not love
3
myself
servings
today.
of fat, 1 injury.
The Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's a good point though. Is that like so you take care of your, so maybe just very physical means like you take care of your body, right? And why do we take care of your body? Is because a lot of people that struggle, at least I did when I was younger, and it was like, well, if you don't like yourself, if you despise yourself, then there's no reason to take care of your body. There's no reason to take care of your soul. There's no reason to focus on these things because you don't have any interest in it. You're not willing the good.
Right.
Can you love yourself without liking yourself?
Ooh.
Well, we're called to love everybody. We're not called to like everybody.
Right. So you can not like yourself a lot and still show yourself love.
Huh.
Yeah, I think there's. Well, if you're like a mean, terrible person, then yeah, you probably shouldn't like that.
Right. I think when I say like, it's more like feely, non-concrete stuff versus like when you love yourself, like this is truth. Like I am showing you my love in this way, and I am showing myself my love or love in this way.
Well, there's sometimes hard love, right? Which like
Right.
facing up to your challenge, your weaknesses, and like
Right.
that's
Well,
unpleasant. But
Like what I just said, right? So if you recognize in yourself that you're a mean and terrible person, and you're displaying that to the world, then you would love yourself. Loving yourself then would be willing the good, and you wouldn't like yourself in that particular circumstance, hopefully, and then you would look to change that potentially. Right. So I think that's where you would say that you don't like yourself, but you're willing the good such that you're looking to change something.
yeah, I'm still trying to mull over your distinction between liking and loving yourself because.
Sorry.
Go ahead, please.
I definitely think you can love yourself regardless of whether or not you like yourself. I think liking yourself, that's like a temporal thing. That's a feeling thing. Just like you said, it's not very concrete. so you can, it's almost like you can be displeased with yourself in a moment. You know what I mean? And as a result, be like, man, I don't know, if a friend of mine did something that really displeased me, maybe I might say like, man, I really do, like, I don't like them right now,
Yeah.
But that doesn't change the fact that I have an obligation to love them. And so just turning it inward doesn't change the fact that that obligation stands.
I would think one way to kind of distinguish like whether or not you like yourself is, can you be alone with yourself?
That doesn't Pascal have something about that?
I have no idea.
He's a philosopher.
Great conversation.
I know, I'm sorry.
But tell me if he does.
Well, he's got like this thing that like, I heard it from Peter Kreeft that there's like a challenge of stay alone in a room, like stay by yourself in a room for an hour. Like, get rid of all your technology, like shut the door, maybe turn off the lights. I don't know if turn off the
It's
lights.
the dark room. Yeah, no, I've heard this. Yeah.
And it's like the average, my understanding is Peter Kreeft offers this to his students. And it's like, do this or write like a huge essay or whatever it is. And he ends up getting tons of essays because the kids can't do it. The students cannot do it. He said that
fall asleep. I don't know.
He said the first time he tried it, he thought an hour went by. It had been 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, we're just incapable of. I don't know. This is something that like, I find that very interesting.
That's interesting.
I have to try this now because I've been doing the Exodus 90 thing, and so I drive around in my car now, which I think you do too, with nothing, right? No radio, anything. Or I don't
Is
know.
that part of Exodus 90?
Well, you're supposed to be-
It's only listen to music that glorifies God.
Yeah, but there's
So
nothing
that's-
on the radio that I like that does.
Oh, I
that.
got CDs.
Right.
Christian.
You should listen to Veritas
my car doesn't
Catholic
take-
Radio Network.
I don't think that's passive though. No, I don't think that qualifies, to be honest, because it's like passive media, which you're trying to avoid. And that defeats.
I don't know.
In any case, moral of the story.
I'm listening to Christian music,
Right,
even though I'm
right,
doing
yeah.
Exodus 90. But
Moral of the story is that I've driven like many hours by myself in complete silence, like driving up to Vermont for like 3.5 hours straight in complete silence.
But you're doing something.
I'm doing something, yeah, but I also multitask really well. So it is hard.
Right.
It is really hard, but you end up. It's amazing. You just let your brain go and see where you end up, and sometimes it's not where you want it to go.
I remember one time I challenged a group of teenagers to just be, see if you could be silent for 10 minutes. And one girl looked at me as if I had asked her to cut off her arm. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, I can't do that. And I said, why not? And she said, I'm afraid of what I might hear in silence. She was afraid to be alone with her own thoughts. And as soon as she gets up, earbuds come in and don't come out till she goes back to sleep. I was like, that's too bad.
Yeah.
What do you think, Angelica? I mean, can you be alone with yourself?
Yes, I think I'm pretty good at it because I talk the Lord's ear off. And now, recently I've been talking to my guardian angel a lot. So I think that fills the space. And if anything, it like that discomfort really just allows the Lord to come in even more. And I just, if there is discomfort or if there's like I'm running away or I want to numb this out, it's more of a red flag, like, hey, like maybe I should bring this to the Lord. So I truly enjoy it. And if somebody wants to try this out, I highly suggest adoration. Go take a seat in the chapel or find a place where they offer Eucharistic adoration where the Lord is exposed in the monstrance, right? And yeah, just sit there and look at him and have that conversation and ask him those questions. Bring your doubts. Be like, hey, I can't be alone, so here I am.
Which actually brings us to the next point. So how do you think God sees you? You talk about loving ourselves, but like, have you ever considered your life from God's perspective?
Yes. The image of an ant comes into my mind, and it has been lately. and I'll explain. So it's kind of like, just like when we look at an ant and look at all the other ants surrounding it, or even if it's an ant that's by itself, you're like, where's this thing going? If you really just look at it for a moment, you're like, where's this thing going? But you can see where it can go and what it's kind of doing. I don't know. From that perspective, I feel like the Lord can really just take care of us. And like, I can see that because I could pick up that ant and be like, hey, come home with me. That's weird, but don't do that.
You're starting an ant farm. That's fine.
But if I see that somebody's going to step on it, I mean, I could do something. I'm not really, but I could. So I think that's kind of from the father perspective right now. So I think I'm really walking with the father right now. I think it also depends which one I'm talking. When I say which one, I mean Father, Son, or Holy Spirit.
Not which God. There's only
Yeah,
Or which aunt?
yeah,
I was thinking, yeah, I don't know.
yeah. So just that comparison in like father and then me in size comparison to an ant. Just that look over all the surroundings, what they're doing, and yeah, that ability to just pick that thing up if I really needed or
yeah.
for
Yeah.
some reason. So
Right.
That's kind of a cool image. I like that.
How are we supposed to follow that? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I guess for me, one thing that's always helped me to understand God's feelings towards me is how I've been blessed to know and accompany other people on their spiritual journeys. You know, I work with a lot of young people, and you know, I see young people who are struggling with stuff, and they're really just, you know, they're trying to live a virtuous life, and they're struggling with purity, and they're struggling with, you know, whatever it is, peer pressure and whatever. And my heart goes out to them. It's not, you know, it's when they come to me with this stuff, it's not like, I can't believe you did that. And, you know, you should be so ashamed. It's almost like, all right, you know, let's work on this because I want you to be holy and whole, and like really, like my heart breaks for people that are, you know, struggling and things. And so I remember one time, you know, I was going to confession myself and just wrestling with my own things in my own life and feeling like dirt because I had fallen again and sinned again. And I walked out of confession and like I just sat in front of this statue of Jesus, and I felt God kind of say, like, you know, imagine what you would say to somebody in your position. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't condemn myself. I wouldn't condemn somebody in my position. So maybe that's what God feels about me. You know, I think sometimes we give better advice to our friends than we give to ourselves.
Oh, that's definitely true.
Oh, yeah.
That's without question.
Yeah, it's really incredible that like the person we are really truly meanest to is ourselves.
A lot of times.
100%.
Yeah, a lot of times.
So how do
Well,
you?
well also I've heard that like when priests preach, they're preaching to themselves first.
A lot of times, yeah.
Yeah.
Not always. When I talk about how to have a holy family,
Yeah, well,
Right,
that's
that's a little different, but
Right.
not certainly true. So what about you guys, Matt and Paul? How do you think
I
God
can say
sees you?
that for a very long time, I think that I didn't think about this at all, and I can say that in my prayer, it's been a couple months, maybe 4 or 5 months. I've been trying to end prayer by basically saying, like, you know, Lord, allow me to know that I'm your son. You know, because that's something that I didn't, like, I knew up in my head, but I didn't know in my heart. And so I've been trying to understand that it's really a filial relationship. It really is, you know, like tangibly. And I'm still working on that, you know, and
Yeah.
by I mean he is still working on that within me, despite my stubbornness. You
That's
know?
true. I think that's the deepest identity is we are beloved sons and daughters of the Heavenly Father.
It's honestly, it's hard to believe, you know. I'm not saying I don't believe it, you know, but I constantly find myself absolutely baffled by our faith. Because I'll say things like I don't know if I'm reading scripture or whatever the heck it is, you know, and I'll be like, that's crazy, you know, and I'm like, I'm saying those words and it's really a reaction at like how awesome that is.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that the sonship is a good example. The fact that like we are adopted children of God, you know, there's only one God.
Right.
We're his children.
Right. And
You
that
know,
and you know that gets so tossed around that it almost loses its impact.
Right, and it's a crazy thought. It's almost unbelievable,
You
but
think
it's
about
so good that it's not.
you think about like what would happen if like you know John Rockefeller were to adopt you. I mean, you'd be the richest guy in the country at the time. You know, you'd have all the privileges. It opened every door, and that's what it means to be adopted by God. Is that you have all the privileges that God has. You know, he says we're going to sit and rule nations. I mean, that's incredible.
Oh, everyone's looking at me, so I think that I am now supposed to talk. which
Yes,
none
you
of
are.
can see because this is audio only. Yeah, I think I've struggled with this in the past. I think it's like Matt said, I think it's something that I know, but it's not always felt or something like that. I think that's
Yeah, it's like
Right.
it hasn't transferred.
right. But I think that it's I think it's actually for me it's when I take on this like angst or whatever it is when I'm mad at myself and I'm not recognizing that like the Lord still loves me. It comes from a place of pride. It's like I'm so special that like
Right.
I shouldn't struggle.
Yeah, or that like he won't love me. It's like, well, that's actually not true, right? I'm not special in that regard because everything in his creation he loves.
Right.
So it's almost like prideful in a weird, condemning kind of way. So I think that's what I work on.
Which brings us to our next question. Because talking about love for God or love for ourselves, it can be easy to slip into pride, to that unhealthy pride. Yeah, so what is the difference between like a healthy self-love and an unhealthy pride?
Yes,
My hand has been raised.
Yes, Matt,
Again.
your turn.
audio on Michael.
So that's why I was dictating it, right? So I've read Saint Augustine's De Doctrina Christiana. I don't know why he was Italian.
Yeah.
He was never Italian. He was North African.
Well,
it's okay.
he moved to Milan.
Yeah, he lives.
Did he?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Dude,
What
come
am I
on. You're
doing?
trying to get a master's.
I know.
This guy's getting a master's in
I
theology.
know.
He doesn't know where
Saint
I mean,
Ambrose
it's-
was his like mentor,
Yeah.
Bishop of Milan.
Okay, fine.
You lose. Go on.
I lose. But Saint Augustine has a treatise in here that is basically on the difference between using and enjoying. We use things to reach a final goal that is not the thing itself, and we enjoy the final goal. So essentially, we're called to enjoy God exclusively. Exclusively. That isn't to say we can't enjoy each other's company, right? But ultimately, I should not enjoy you, like essentially for your sake. You know what I mean? And one of the sentences, because I have the book in front of me, because I came prepared. I don't know why I'm being sassy.
Too much pride.
Yeah, that's it. No, I'm sure it is. It says, so if you ought not to love yourself for your own sake, but for the sake of the one, I'm sorry, I don't have to read the whole sentence. I really just wanted you to hear, if you ought not love yourself for your own sake. That's the important thing. I think that's what gets missed in the self-love books that are secular. It's like, it's almost like it's like an acknowledgement of you're good, but not why you're good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was a really roundabout way of getting to that.
Well, that's a good insight. I mean, we love ourselves because we're created in the image and likeness of God.
Right. It's not
Because-
about enjoying myself for the sake of myself. It's about not like the language almost doesn't translate well by saying like using myself for the enjoyment of God. You know, because we are called to like it's great that I can come to this conversation and laugh and have fun and, you know, be joyful. We're called to be joyful. So it's not like this stoic usage,
Right.
you know?
I think a good definition of that is Mary's Magnificat, right? Because, I mean, it talks about her. She's praising herself only insofar as what God has done for her.
Yeah.
Right.
You know? Yeah, God, yeah, all generations would call me blessed because of what God did.
Right.
Also, I just wanted to note that I was glancing over at Matt's book, and he has two different highlighters, underlining, and notes in the margin.
Okay.
It's intense. It's intense.
The blue was for today.
Oh, okay. Okay, great.
I've had to read this. It's unfortunate that I didn't know that he lived in Milan, considering the fact that I have had to read this book like 3 times.
It may
for
not
grad
be in
school.
that book, though.
That is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's Confessions.
no, I haven't.
Oh, well, there you go.
I haven't.
Yeah, it's the autobiography.
That's
Yeah.
fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm off the hook.
Angelica, what do you think? The difference between healthy self-love and pride?
Well, I'll tell you what's on my mind, and you can let me know if that responds to your question,
Okay.
because that's all that's on my mind. So Paul was there. There was a question of like, what's the hardest thing to believe about our Catholic faith that would like turn people away, something along those lines. And I kind of listened, and I sat with something that I was like, whoa, Lord, like really? And it's the hardest thing to believe, and the reason that there is so much like despair, because people have a hard time believing this, and that's when like faith comes in. It's just that like there is a God that loves you, that has specific love for you, and yeah, I think when we approach we approach our faith like that, we approach love like that, then it's like God loves me, and then we can move forward with having self-love because God loves me. It's like, God, like, who are you and who am I? They don't, if once we separate, I think that's when pride comes in. When things are out of order, when the questions are out of order, when priorities are out of order, and meaning very basically like, okay, the Lord is first, and this is His love is the gift to me, and like I am here because of Him, and like it's all pointed back to the Lord.
That's good. Yeah, it's all pointed back to the Lord. So let me ask you a pointed question then. So in a lot of old-fashioned prayers, especially, there's a kind of a heresy in the 1600s, 1700s called Jansenism, which really kind of focused on God's justice over His mercy and really kind of focused on our unworthiness. And I've read prayers that are like, I, an unworthy piece of trash, pray to you, the Almighty God.
You are like
I am a worm.
A worm, yeah, I was going to say.
I'm a worm.
Well, it's interesting in the canon though. The bishop, if the bishop is saying the mass, he'll say, instead of Pope Francis and Bishop Frank or whatever, it will say, and me, your unworthy servant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, go on.
So I'm just wondering, is it healthy? Like even my brother, for example, has a great devotion to Our Lady, and he made this chain, which a lot of people wear, kind of a chain around the wrist or their ankle to kind of show that they are slaves of Mary. And I've never been comfortable calling myself a slave of God because we've been set free. We're sons and daughters. We're no longer slaves. Mm-hmm. I mean, is it that kind of imagery of like us being like almost like an ant? God is so great, and ants can be squished. Is that good? Is it bad? What do you think? I don't know.
I think it depends the person. This is all relationship with the Lord, and if the Lord's calling you to be in that place, then sure, praise God. And if He's not, then don't go there, because then you could fall into a hole of I'm so unworthy. I think if I'm that ant, I'm looking at the Lord in awe, right? And that's how He has me right now, and that's the image that He has me praying with. But if I'm not ready to go there, then I'm not going to go there. I think a year ago, I wouldn't have benefited from any of that imagery, just because I wasn't in a place where I could really sit there and feel that love that comes from that image, and like the carrying in the hand. So
you're saying that you almost have to be so advanced in the spiritual life that you're so secure in God's love that you can recognize your unworthiness?
I don't know if there's a first and second, or like a level that you have to reach. I think it's just simply like, is the Lord calling you to see Him in this way?
Embrace that image. Huh.
I think it depends the person, because then it's all in relationship. It's all in relationship. Like, how's your relationship with the Lord? Is He calling you there? And if He is, then so be it.
Amen. That's yeah. That's very true.
It's a sobering thought. I don't know, just the image itself. If I'm the ant, I mean, it's sobering. It demands humility. That you're like, I don't know. Now you got me thinking I'm an ant. Well,
So
not in a bad way.
You can only be an
I mean?
uncle.
Like I've never pictured it that way.
Have you looked at, well, if you hike and you go somewhere that you can have like this beautiful like scene like from a movie right in front of you, like that's kind of like a bigger version of you as like the ant.
Yeah,
you feel small and
right. I think it's important. I was thinking about when you say you're a slave, and I'm wondering if a lot of people do that because, I mean, honestly, when you do something great, like your brain like activates all these chemicals, right? It's like you get especially something that you did yourself and it's like an accomplishment, your brain like activates like dopamine and serotonin, and you're like, all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I'm on top of the world, right? And that's like the pride aspect of it, right? Some of it's just chemical and it happens, but then if you take that too far and it loses its chemical, but you kind of keep it going after that wears off, I think that's where I'm assuming that a lot of people that do that, it's a reminder of the humility, that it's like, okay, it's not me, I give that up to God, and thank God that I've had the opportunity to have this accomplishment or something like that, or I owe it to Him that I've accomplished this, as opposed to I'm so great, because that's like the animalistic tendencies of our brain to go out and fight again and do it again.
Yeah.
So I always struggle with that aspect as well.
So I think one of the ways in which we can both grow in a love for ourselves and also humility is to recognize our weakness. And at some point we kind of have to accept certain weaknesses that we have, and not, because as you said, Paul, like sometimes we think like, why am I still struggling with this? And it's really kind of an act of veiled pride. But what is the balance though between accepting your weakness and like being lukewarm about it? Like, shouldn't we, when we see ourselves sinning or falling, shouldn't we be like, I got to strive harder. I got to motivate myself instead of being like, yeah, this is who I am. I love myself for that.
I think it's important to remember that sometimes the Lord allows that thorn in the flesh. Like for me, there have been sins in my past that it was like, you go to confession and you're like, all right, what do we do this week? Oh, same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it took a couple times for Father Suarez, God bless him, he's the best, along with you, Father.
It's not a competition. Not a competition.
All of us are equally the best. Everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah.
No. But
special notes.
it took he's been very patient with me, and he just reminded me so many times, the Lord's allowing this for a reason too, like not to get into the dangerous territory of like the Lord isn't necessarily, he's not willing my sin. You know what I mean? That's not what I'm trying to say.
No, but even Augustine says that in his commentary on Romans 8, it says that when it says that all things work for good for those who love God, that includes our sins.
Right.
It does. Yeah.
I don't think that absolves us about the struggle, though, to overcome them, right?
No. I don't think that was the intention of the original text.
Right, right, yeah. And I think there's a difference between noticing your weaknesses, which are not necessarily... So, like, I couldn't... The only class I ever struggled with in my entire education was physics 2. I couldn't do it. I just, like, magnetism, I can't even say it. Like, I just couldn't do it. It was beyond my ability to comprehend, and I had to, like I wasn't majoring in that, so I just kind of, like, got my B and moved on. But, like...
Wait, a B is your struggle?
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
Bro.
Well, that's my struggle.
I failed Latin.
Okay, that's interesting.
And I still became a priest. But.
There you go. No, so I think that there's a difference between that, but I think sometimes sins can come from our worldly strengths, right? And so, like worldly weaknesses can actually be avenues of virtue, and vice versa.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. So, last question. Is it necessary to love yourself in order to love God? I mean, if you're struggling with this, and maybe some of our listeners are struggling with loving themselves, is it necessary? Because it says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Like, do you have to love yourself in order to love your neighbor well?
Sounds it.
I don't know. And I'm just going to stare at everyone awkwardly until someone else responds.
Well, it certainly seems that way. Right? Because why would we are called to love, and we are called to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. So the root is that if then we're called to love ourselves. And in order to do loving your neighbor well, it seems as though you have to love yourself well.
And I think we can't give of ourselves if we don't first possess ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
Well, also it's the first commandment too, which is love your God. Right? And in order to love yourself, you have to love God first.
Because of God first.
God first, and then you love yourself, and then neighbor. That seems to be the progression, right? I don't know if that's true, and that might be heresy.
Because I think if you don't love yourself, then a lot of times people will love their neighbor out of a desire to feel loved. Like, for example, I'm going to go serve the poor because it makes me feel good about myself. Because I'm not, and that's their motivation, or I'm expecting praise or something like that.
Well, that's the dopamine and serotonin,
right?
That's where that kicks in.
Because they don't have a genuine love for themselves,
right?
Angelica, what are your thoughts?
I'm thinking, so if you can't love yourself, I mean, yeah, try to love God, but more ahead of that, I think, because I don't know which one comes first, or I don't know which one should be done first, but to let God love you and kind of what that looks like. I think loving yourself is letting God love you, and loving the Lord is letting God love you. So if you don't know where to start, just let God love you.
Beautiful.
So
That's so true.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing to end on. In fact, that'll be the challenge for this week. Just let God love you. Maybe go to adoration, sit in your room with your lights off for an hour if you can. But let God love you. Yeah. And that's really is the first step to loving yourself, recognizing your value in the eyes of God. You can find us, Restless, on Veritas Catholic Network, which is both on AM and FM, and also on apps and website and all kinds of other social media. YouTube, yeah. So check us out.
Amen.
Amen. That's the end of the episode.
That's it.